Welcome to the Busted Fighters Repaired Daily podcast. On Busted Fighters, we discuss sports medicine topics important to MMA athletes, their doctors, therapists, trainers, and coaches. Our guests tell their story of recovery from a specific injury, what worked for them, what didn't, and why. I'm your host, Matt Colby. I'm a chiropractic sports physician, and I focus on the problems MMA athletes run into during training, fight camps, and competition. Today, I'm here with my friends Tom Ullman, Matt Andrade, and our two guests, Kevin Longoria and Andre Hicks. These two are trusted experts in the fight camp science arena. Phoenix has become quite a destination for fighters regarding fight camps, in part because of these two. Kevin and Andre have designed fight camps for Henry Cejudo, Yair Rodriguez, the Pitbull brothers, Henry Corrales, and others. Today's topic was biometrics and other fight camp strategies. You've heard Kevin talk about this on JRE. Today, we had the opportunity to go a little deeper into the hows and whys. Kevin and Andre told us how you can implement some of these concepts for yourself or your athletes without spending a fortune. I mean, there's velocity-based training, circadian rhythm intervention, gut health, and more. Today, you're really going to have to put your thinking caps on and get ready to take some notes because we move along pretty quick. Okay, so it's time to do this. Kevin Longoria and Andre Hicks, here they are. Welcome, guys. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having us.
What's up, man? Not much. So we got a lot to talk about today, and we're probably going to find ourselves doing a lot of definitions and defining. One word I just want to throw out there right in the beginning and get straight, biometrics. This is a word we hear a lot. This is a word I know you use a lot. What are biometrics, Kevin?
Cool. Biometric essentially is any sort of human measurement or calculation. So there's these more basic biometrics that we're seeing on our wearable systems, right? Like our steps and heart rate and our sleep. And there's more complex biometrics that actually allow us to quantify things like your autonomic nervous system. So we're going to be diving into this. I'll keep it simple here for the intro, but basically it's all about collecting the right data if we want to facilitate an individualized and data-driven approach, right? Mm-hmm. This is kind of the first step of what we talk about. Everyone's talking about training smarter, not just harder. You really got to apply some data to that, and biometrics is essentially that data.
Gotcha. Now, what are some of the most important biometric pieces of data you get? It seems like with fight camps, heart rate variability is the big one, if not one of the big ones.
Yeah, so really what we focus on is not just assessing physical parameters, strength and such is extremely important, but mental parameters as well. Mm-hmm. So really we kind of have to differentiate what we're collecting at baseline, right? Somebody comes in, we want to assess them for 4 to 6 hours. We're running them through everything, metabolic testing, body composition testing, segmental analysis. But then when we send them out the door, what we want to do is a comparative analysis. So we look at, what's very good, what's okay, and then any of these functional deficiencies. Mm-hmm. Then we create a program, right? We want to focus on exploiting any functional strength, got to keep them good at what they're good at, but then really getting rid of any of these deficiencies as well. So now me and Andre combined minds, we put together a program with confidence. We use data, but then it's all about checking our work, right? Mm-hmm. Human physiology is very complex. So what we apply, we believe is going to work, but we better be constantly checking and adjusting. This is where things like heart rate variability and sleep analysis come in, right? What people really need to understand is how adaptation actually occurs. What we do in the gym, training, studying for a test, this is a stressor. It's extremely important. You absolutely have to apply it. But the adaptation that we seek actually occurs during phases of sleep and recovery. So when anyone who's just training and sending you on your way and saying, see you tomorrow, mm-hmm. is missing a big opportunity because this is really when adaptation occurs. Mm-hmm. So the most important, like you mentioned there, is heart rate variability. To get kind of simple with it, it's a measurement of your autonomic nervous system. So basically your sympathetic relative to your parasympathetic. This controls all the involuntary processes. Things like your heart rate and your respiratory rate are the really obvious ones, but also things like your stress hormones, your inflammatory responses, your immune system. So what we do here is a single number that can basically quantify physical and mental health parameters. And this is something we're going to assess every single day. We're going to adjust your training program around it.
First thing in the morning?
First thing in the morning. What we focus on here with BioStrap is nocturnal analysis. Mm-hmm. If you can imagine, when you're sleeping, as many confounds are as controlled as possible, right? We know where you were, we knew the environment, we knew you weren't sitting in traffic. But when we start to take daytime data from that, it can kind of skew our artificial intelligence and our machine learning concepts.
So sleeping at night is the best time to get data just because it's uniform. You're pretty much doing the same thing every night.
Yeah, exactly. Even, what we're doing with some COVID, a little off topic here, but people are going in and they're doing a little forehead scan and they're saying your skin temperature's hot. It's like, shit, we're in Arizona. It's 110 degrees out. No shit, right?
Yeah.
But if we're trending your nocturnal data, all these confounds are now controlled. And so we can compare day to day and look at changes in trend. So me and Andre apply an intervention. We see a positive change in trend. Cool. We know it's working. We're going to keep doing it. When it plateaus, we're going to make some adjustments. Sometimes we see a maladaptive trend. Now we have early identification and we need to switch some shit up.
Do you see a big change like because fight week is usually Tuesday through Saturday, right? Where you go to whatever city it is. And if you're getting data at night on everybody, do you notice just being at a hotel in a new city, do you notice a lot of difference there?
Certainly, the jet lag is going to be a 2 to 3 day kind of bounce back period. And that's why we do try and travel out as quickly as possible. I would say that the hotel is probably the least of the worries when you start factoring in things like altitude, where we're going to can be much more important as well. How stressed they are leading up to the fight, if they broke their nutrition program. So the travel is important, but it's not really something I build an entire program around.
Okay. So when you first get your hands on an athlete, you're doing a bunch of tests and getting a bunch of data. Andre, when they first come to you first day for strength and conditioning, what type of assessment do you do?
So we'll put our assessments together over that period. It could be 2 days, 4 to 6 hours, and Kevin's looking at all those internal systems, and I'm basically seeing how those come out in actualization in the real world. So we're looking at, power, strength and power tests, force characteristics, posture, movement, anything we can do to see how all that stuff's being expressed, so then we can optimize down the road. So we'll do a mid-thigh pull, isometric mid-thigh pull, reactive strength index, dynamic strength index, seated med ball tosses, different things too for that person if they are injured and we need to modify a test to see, okay, how's that affecting this movement? We'll play around in that realm too. But
so you have some functional. Is this accurate? Functional movement tests.
Yeah, basically
functional
FMS.
capacity
Right.
tests.
We'll do FMS, posture. We'll just look at those different things, joint ranges of motion, not at the level that you would do, but just basic screens to know. Okay, these are some areas we need to look at. These are some correctives, foam rolling, and warm up movement prep stuff we need to do.
It seems like when I look at the things that I get over social media, not just for fighters but with all sports related to strength and conditioning, why is the landmine press seem like the big thing this year? Everybody training athletes is doing landmine presses like crazy.
Trends. I think people see stuff at a high level and they go, that's the one. And nothing wrong with it. But it's like you're always seeing newfangled, not that that's a newfangled exercise, but you'll see a niche or a trend and then everyone's doing it. And it's going, like we do landmine presses, but it's not my holy grail of but you can produce power, but how much different than a med ball? You
saw it a lot with baseball training like 2 years ago, and now this year it's
everyone does it.
Funny.
I see that with so many things.
That's cool. One thing we've talked about a lot is periodization. Could you give us a good definition of that? Because that really relates to how you structure a fight camp.
Basically, it's not being senseless when you're trying to get someone to peak on time. So we're looking at, I need to develop certain qualities in phases for an athlete. I need them to develop this, carry it to the next phase, all the way to the fight so they can peak. So that could be as simple as increasing intensities, tempos of a movement, changing exercises, putting different demands on the cardiovascular system from aerobic to anaerobic. There's many different ways you would do it, but for us, and I think the uniqueness in our periodization is, you'll still see people these days doing linear periodization. We are far from that. We're more undulated, but the way we do it is kind of a daily undulated periodization or an auto-regulation. So biostrap data, omega wave data, day to day, we're getting input to dictate where we're going. So it's like our periodization overall, that's a roadmap. The way we read the nervous system and the technology we use, that is our GPS now. So, maybe we have a day that's a strength day, one day's a power day, one day is more of a, just a straight up circuit day. We're working, aerobic one day, anaerobic the next, but we can manipulate those pieces day to day based on what the nervous system is telling us. So
one thing I remember Henry Cejudo saying a couple years ago when you guys did the first fight camp with him for the Demetrius fight was that, he's been doing this a long time and he knows how he feels on certain days. And the tough thing that he had to really get himself to commit to, which obviously paid off, is he'd wake up some days saying, okay, today I'm planning to go hard.
Right.
But our biometrics are saying, no, my nervous system is shot and I need to recover today. And it was hard to do, but he did it, and he did commit to it. And he said that first fight camp he did with you guys was different than his other fight camps.
That's the hardest thing to get people to crack into, especially when you get, with Fight Ready and some of those guys, they're so used to it now. But when you get a new fighter from a new camp, it's like, well, when we see that working, then we'll get along with their thing. But that's the hardest thing to convince them.
I don't think at any of the camps we've ever told somebody to train more. It's literally taking days off. And like you said, it's beyond the subjective. There's days where you feel great, but I'm saying your nervous system diminished. You got a low ability to make adaptation and an increased risk of injury. What are we doing here? Might as well just take the day off. On the other hand, very rarely do you feel like shit and your data is really good. So generally the subjective works a little better when you feel poor, but not always.
When you have that situation happen where someone's feeling good, but the biometrics are saying no, what is coming back and saying no? What is off? What is telling you that their nervous system's tapped out?
So really what we've done at BioStrap is we've created a system around it. So you're not interpreting a bunch of individual biometrics. You're looking at a sleep and a recovery score, right? 0 to 100, a lot easier to understand than understanding sleep latency and sleep type. And your heart rate variability is 30% lower than it was over the last 30 days, right? So we just create these systems, and it's basically a go, no go. What we do is we dive in a little bit deeper, and then we can look into subsystems, right? So your recovery score is diminished, so we're going to avoid speed and power, but you have good arterial elasticity. It's a good day for something like a lymphatic recovery.
Okay. What we talk a lot on the podcast about recovery. We had Mike Goldberg and Paul McGowan on last week, and we talked about recovery for athletes over 40. Some of the things we talked about were the products that we buy and use, right? Like you got like the Air Relax boots, you got your massage guns of every different type. What kind of stuff are you guys using for recovery for your athletes that other people listening to this can start to implement?
You want to take it?
Yeah, basically those. We use the lymphatic compression. We don't use it all the time, but we have something called cranial electrical stimulation. It's a small device that puts a small microcurrent into your HPA axis, so it's increasing serotonin and melatonin. So if people are having trouble sleeping, that's something we can recommend. And a lot of times we'll get it on guys right after a workout, and that's called a Fisher-Wallace device.
Got it.
We'll also use IR lighting. We'll do the massage guns. We'll do, nutrient timing as well, like supplementation. Understanding nutrition, of course, is going to be a huge component. Breath work, all those different things.
I'm glad you brought up IR, because that's probably the thing that athletes ask me about the most, that I have to say, like, I don't really actually know that much about it. Tell me about it, because it used to be popular, then it wasn't, and now it is again.
Well, I almost wonder if people, like even people that are putting it out know, because the list that you see now, it's like it cures cancer. You see so much about the benefits.
It's a broad-based approach.
For us, actually, we've been starting to use it in workout, because there are some studies showing like ATP production, things like that during the workout. And then, of course, we're using it for circulation mostly afterward.
Yeah, big thing we look at during baseline is your arterial properties, arterial elasticity, peripheral elasticity. What we're looking at there is essentially your endothelial function, how well you can produce nitric oxide. And this, to me, out of everything that IR or near-infrared therapy does, it's really good at improving circulation. This is something we want to do, during the warm-up phase, during training, because now we're getting better aerobic capacity, better oxygen and nutrient delivery. It's really one of the most meaningful things you can do for recovery as well. This is one of those across the board. If you can afford it, you should be doing IR near-infrared therapy.
Gotcha. So in the middle of the workout sometimes, and then definitely after. Gotcha.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Let's see. Well, eventually we're gonna.
So you're dealing with like, how do you deal with the, no pain, no gain type of thing? Those new athletes that come in they believe that they've got to torture themselves in order to gain.
Well, I guess a big part of that is now you have the data to show you your objective outcomes. So Henry Cejudo is more of a feeling guy, right? So he bought into the process, took a few days, but it took, maybe a few weeks until he started to feel much better. His coaches were reporting that he was hitting harder. Sometimes it just takes a little, believe in the process and you're going to see some results. We also have this little tool on our wrist that every single morning is giving you a little score. These are competitors, right? So whether they know what a heart rate variability or a sleep score is, they want a higher number on it. So when they start believing in the process, applying things properly, we hope they feel better, but objectively we want to show them that they're getting better as well.
So they start buying into it.
Yeah, definitely. It's a competition. And I see this outside the athletic realm as well, right? Fitness is a punishment-based system. We're using this little number on a scale to reinforce our progress. We're getting training-related injuries or just pain. So we give up, right? When you have a tool like this, if you're eating a right nutrition program, you are training, you will see objective and quantifiable improvements. And basic human psychology, right? We want to continue any behavior. You got to make somebody feel good about it, and let's let the AI do that.
I think a lot like showing those numbers with competitive people, like he's saying, is they need to see that number go from here to here consistently. And I think one thing we started doing was if a guy's in an 8-week camp, we're going to do a mid-camp retest now. And we have a guy, I won't say any names right now, full on, wrestler mindset, go, 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 no pain, no gain. Him doing the least amount he's probably ever done conditioning-wise, as far as what we're doing. His coach is still going to do his stuff. And then I get his numbers, strength and power numbers, BIA numbers, all those things, and go, here. This is 4 weeks of you doing less than you ever thought you would, and all of his numbers skyrocket. Goes, okay, I'm bought in. Give him screenshots. Go take this to your coach. Show them your recovery score. Show him what this means. Because when you get them engaged, they want to buy in now too. They want to buy into this cool thing that they're doing where they're actually acting like a professional and taking care of their body and watching the performance elevate. So they're getting these screenshots, and they don't know what DC brain potential is, but they're going, see, I'm a 5 out of a 7.
Well, talk about a selling point. Right. You don't have to work out that hard.
They go in there to their coach. They got all this data saying, see, nope. Only 10 minutes of sprints today.
One of the things we see, Andre, in the workouts, clips we see on social media of you training Henry and other fighters, is exercises that look a little different from what we usually see.
Right.
The main thing is velocity-based training. Can you tell us a little bit about velocity-based training?
There's so many applications, but basically you're using a tool to watch bar speed. Mm-hmm. Bar speed is correlated with percentages of a 1 rep max is the basic way we use it. So I know after I've velocity profiled or force velocity profiled a guy, I know when he starts like a baseline. Instead of just knowing a 1 rep max, you can squat 300 pounds. I know which weights you can move at which speeds. The thing is to move the bar as fast as you possibly can concentrically. So if I know these speeds are how you move certain weights, I can now watch you over a camp. Those speeds are correlated with a certain strength attribute. Is it strength, speed, strength, absolute strength? If I know those different components, rather than me going, I squat you baseline and your squat's 300 pounds, and I go typical linear periodization, I might say, okay, this week you're going to do 65%, next week 70, next week 75, next week you're going to work into 80.
That's just addressing the weight, but
that's
not
just
the
it.
Speed.
And it's not addressing nervous system changes.
Right.
Let's say your cat died that morning, got cut off in traffic, and you were just down and out. You ate shitty, you didn't sleep well. Today you come in, and what's supposed to be your 75 based on the numbers I got from you 3 weeks ago has changed because your nervous system's not ready to output that. So you come in now, and I'm trying to force you into 75%. You ain't ready for it. Risk of injury. Vice versa. Say you've gotten stronger. Say we're doing really good, and your body's, boom, blowing past where that 75 would have been. Now I'm cheating you. So velocity-based training is I can look at what attribute I want to develop in a particular phase on a particular day. So let's say it's daily undulating. So say Monday we're going to do some strength work, and I need you at 80%. Well, today it might be I need you between 0.3 meters per second and 0.6 meters per second. I'm going to find the weight that you can maintain in that velocity zone. I'm going to measure every rep. And there's certain things we can do like cut sets off if you start decreasing in velocity consecutively between a couple reps. But basically it's me being able to say, I need these attributes to be developed at this time in camp so you can peak when you get here. But I need that to match you. I don't need you to match the program. I want your nervous system to help me dictate what we need to do to get that out of you today. That goes along with Omega Wave and things like that. You get a read or a BioStrap recovery score, sleep score. I know what your nervous system, what attributes it's ready to develop today. I can now match your velocity zones with that. So it's always keeping up with you.
Deciding what speed to train at.
Speed would be dictated prior because that is going to give me my zone. That's going to give me my zone I'm working in. Now what I'm manipulating is weight. Because now it's like I said, you're not having to match it, it's matching you, your nervous system that day. Your speed strength zone on Monday might be different than Friday. There's certain times I want to bring you up to the challenge, but mostly I want to make sure just perfectly for your nervous system every day, I'm getting the program to match you and what speed I need you to move that barbell at, or what weight I need you to move that barbell at the speed.
Got it. Awesome. Now, obviously, some of the people listening to this podcast are fighters and they're trainers and coaches. What types of things do you think they can glean from what you guys are doing? And I'm talking about people who are in a fight camp with a lot less resources, a lot less money, a lot less tools and technology. What have you guys learned doing these fight camps that someone training out in, say, Idaho could implement like tomorrow?
I think finding any method to measure and monitor fatigue and readiness.
Mm-hmm.
It could be as simple as just HRV.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you need to go get a biostrap. Maybe you need to I think just investing that alone is going to help you streamline and GPS your roadmap.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think at our, the level of athlete we're working with, clinical reliability is extremely important. So we need maybe these more expensive tools.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's $245, so
Right.
possibly available to everybody.
Right.
There's little apps on your phone where you can measure your resting heart rate and heart rate variability using the little camera light. So that's a great way to start. And then to me, I think a lot of it's just the basic shit that everyone should be doing anyways, right? It's not that hard to sleep 8 to 10 hours every night when you're in camp, or to avoid blue light for 2 hours prior to going to sleep every single night, or the basics of nutrient timing. You're going to probably have a lot of high carbohydrate meals. Just time these up properly right after your more rigorous exercises.
Okay. It's funny you talk about sleep because, for a lot of people, I'm one of those people, if I get 5 hours sleep, I'm fine, right? I don't notice or feel much of a difference. So if you told me, Matt, you have to sleep 8 hours tonight, I would have to try to force myself to do it. Are a lot of the fighters that same way? Or are they just training hard and crashing out easy? Is it easy to get them to sleep the amounts you want them to sleep?
I mean, there's really no magic number to it. So your body's adapted to 5. Maybe I would try and get you to do 6 or something. You're not an elite athlete either. No offense there. But when you're in camp, the amount of demand.
Shots fired.
more exercise, more time for recovery essentially there. So at the very least, what you should be doing, the most basic, is circadian rhythm intervention. Go to sleep and wake up at the same time every single day. Try and sleep in a cooler room with the lights off, no sound stimulation. Little things like that cost you absolutely nothing. Once again, you're going to feel better. If you have this to track your sleep score, that's great, but you're going to feel more recovered. You're going to feel these adaptations happening faster. It's going to cost you nothing.
So blue light being no TV, read a book.
Yeah.
And then no sound,
Yeah, basically the blue light's the big one, just because nowadays we're staring at blue screens all day, cell phones and computer screens. This basically tricks our brain, right? We used to know when the sun went down that we should start producing melatonin. It takes a few hours for our brain temperature to drop down. Now we drift away into sleep. Now, we just did a study with the university, and 97% of them said they're looking at technology within 20 minutes of laying down with bed. Your brain thinks it's light until the second you turn off your phone and you lay down. You can't just flip that switch. There's physiological processes, melatonin production, that helps you drift away.
I got to be taking notes. Shit.
What about taking melatonin? This is something that I've never done. People have told me all kinds of stories about it. Is this something that someone in a fight camp shouldn't mess with?
I would stay away from it personally. I'm kind of a natural guy. Anything that your body was intended to produce, it can produce, but you got to put it in the right environment to produce it. So, certainly there's medical conditions, not really the population we're talking about right now. Proper nutrition, proper sleep habits, your body's hormones are going to generally, reset themselves properly.
One thing that the fighters that we know mutually have talked about a ton when they talk about the programs you guys put together is the weight cut, and how they had the easiest weight cut of their career and stuff like that. What are you, and we all know weight cutting can be a competitive advantage, or it can be a complete disaster. What do you guys do that's different? And is that something you can share with us?
Yeah, definitely. I think, day one, what it starts with is we're starting the weight cut the day of baseline. So it's an 8-week program. Maybe we're not going right into caloric restriction. This is where me and Andre need to combine minds. The coherence between the strength and the nutrition is extremely important. If I have him at a phase of caloric restriction while Andre's trying to do muscular hypertrophy, things aren't going to work. Similarly, if I'm at a caloric restriction, he needs to adjust his training because he's not going to have as much energy to output. So we start at day one. What we always start with is getting the gut right. You want to be able to digest the food that you're putting in your body. You want to be properly hydrated throughout your entire camp, not just when you're, doing your water loading 4 days out. So we draw this kind of like macro program, anti-inflammatory, treat your gut right. And then every single week we're doing what's called bioelectrical impedance analysis. We have a $15,000 device at our facility. They sell a $79 device that's pretty darn accurate online. But instead of just looking at, say, your body weight, of course, at the end of the day, you have to make that little scale weight, right? These are the rules. We're not ignorant to that. What we really care about is adjusting your nutrition so that we're sacrificing the least amount of muscle and only losing fat. Then we're going to do things like sweat rate testing, so we get predictability in terms of how much water you lose in a 30-minute sauna session or during a physical activity. So it's all about gaining predictability. First camps can be a little difficult. By the second or third, it's a science. Henry Cejudo's most recent, I predicted his weight every single week, 8 weeks out, all the way down day to day for fight camp or fight week within about 0.2 pounds. Never skipped a beat. And this is even including some human error where he's probably not following the nutrition program. So it's all about getting the predictability there. I think just the biggest thing that we try to emphasize here is maybe you can do one of these drastic weight cuts and make weight and refuel and be heavy. You may even be strong, but there's absolutely no way your central nervous system bounces back. Things like your reaction speed are just not going to recover 24 hours after that type of toll on your body.
Got it. So basically, instead of cutting weight the last couple of weeks, you're trying to bring someone down over the whole fight camp. So that way, I mean, it is closer to what their true weight is, and they've adapted to it. So that way, on that last day or two where, we're doing some silly things and dehydrating to try to hit that number, it's just less of a water cut.
Yeah, I mean, you're trying to get them within 8% 1 week out is kind of the general number, but we also have to understand it. Were they losing weight at the pace we thought, or do we need to plan a little bit more there? And then there's the obvious things that people know. Obviously, you're avoiding fiber and sodium and things like that. But, it's really just getting that fight week down right. And, I'd be lying if I said there's a perfect formula for it. A lot of it is guessing and checking and adjusting constantly.
And once you get some of that data, like, okay, how much are you going to sweat out during a half-hour sauna session? You can plan better. I've cut weight for competitions before, and there's the weight cut, but then there's also the nervousness of, okay, am I doing the math right? Okay, I'm going to lose a pound tomorrow. I'm going to sweat out this much just like last time. Is it going to work the same as last time? And you're on the scale, off the scale all night. And if you're off by a pound that you're not expecting the night before, it's like you're at mental breakdown stage. I'd imagine when you have a better plan like this, it's just less stress on the athlete.
Yeah, definitely. And you got to understand it's not linear. It's called a linear regression model. So your first 30 minutes isn't the same as your second 30 minutes isn't the same as your third. So it's all about getting the predictability there. And if you're not messing up, you should feel pretty confident in all that.
Cool.
Is it easier to go up in weight or go down in weight?
I mean, with Cejudo, it's a lot easier to go up to 135. In general, I guess a lot of that comes down to body type. There's the skinny, lengthy guys who you can't put a pound on them, no matter how much they eat. So I'd say there's actually better predictability with losing weight than gaining it, but gaining it's more fun for sure.
Right.
Yeah, especially
Burritos.
We'll take a quick breather here so Matt can reset the camera. He just has to reset it every once in a while. Any little weird dull spots we have, he's just going to chop out. So
You're good.
that's cool. All right. Let's see. When we pick it back up, I'll get into...
We're ready right now.
Is that a good question, asking you what didn't work? Anything that didn't work in camps? It's not...
I'm trying to think. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say
It might
the
not be a
stem.
good one.
It could be. I
Low
feel
budget.
like there's something.
All right.
Yeah, I don't know. We're looking pretty good.
I felt like there was something we used to do that we're like, yeah, that's the waste of time. Other than STEM. I mean,
Yeah, I don't
but
really want
that's
to throw
kinda
them under the
embarrassing.
bus. Yeah, I'm working with New Fit right now.
He's ready.
Is that already going?
Yeah.
All right. All right. One thing we talked about before the podcast is making sure we don't accidentally give out sensitive information, right? That's something that comes naturally to us. But if you're listening to this podcast and you're wondering, like, why won't they be a little bit more specific about this or that? That's why. So what we're really talking about a lot today are concepts, right? And one thing that Henry Cejudo talked about very openly on a podcast a few weeks ago is how much he takes his routine very, very seriously, he and his coaches. And they talked a lot about how on sparring day they do it just like fight night. They walk the same amount of steps that they're going to walk on fight night. For the walkout, they hear the same music. They do the routine with a cut man and everything. And everyone seemed really blown away by that. But that seems like the kind of thing that anybody could do. You don't need all of this equipment and all this stuff. Have you worked with any fighters that come in that are already doing that stuff and doing it very well?
Corrals, I'd say.
Yeah, Henry Corrales is the man for sure. He probably takes it the most seriously, but has a lot of fun doing it at the same time. I don't know. We're starting with, even at this elite level, people who are just traditional, right? Just putting in the work, and that's about all they know how to do. So it's really what we do is this baseline, and then me and Andre sit down with them for like usually 2 or 3 hours day one and try and bring in their entire coaching team. And there's a huge education phase that has to take place too. So we're not telling them to do walking outs and full fight simulations or anything like that, but it's got to be a kind of unanimous buy-in at the entire team. And so with that comes a kind of the task of us having to tell people what we're doing, not just blindly follow it.
Gotcha.
And I think that's new because it's weird to think about. I mean, I know in football you'd have something like that, basketball as well, where there's coordination in sport coach, strength coach, physiologist, nutritionist, because everything has to fit cohesively. But when we came in, it was like it seemed unheard of for them to know what we were doing and for us to get in there and track heart rate and look at their sessions and dictate time and rounds and whatnot. So
do you think it's more like the coaches all trying to stay out of each other's way too much?
And I wouldn't want someone coming in and telling me don't do 5 sets of whatever. But we're not going into the details of that. It's just, if you'd like this to cohesively plug together, these are the components you should utilize. And it's as simple a lot of times as just a heart rate or a round dictation based on stress levels. But there needs to be that when we're both doing a form of training for this. We're conditioning, getting stronger, nutrition, recovery. You're doing sport practice. Those should fit like this. And I think the quicker you can kind of everyone put their ego away and get that going, it's what you get is what happened with Henry's camp. So.
Yeah, and I think we try to be minimally invasive on the other coaches as well. We're not sport-specific MMA coaches, right? So I'll say this is maybe how many rounds. You should keep his heart rate here, and I don't really give a shit what type of training you do, but this is what we need to limit it to. So they still have a lot of freedom to work in there.
One thing I saw you doing, Kevin, during a fight camp was you guys were training. It was sparring day, and you were intentionally trying to spike someone's heart rate. I believe it was like 3 times in a 5-minute round. Do I have that right?
More as part of the warm up than like intra round or anything like that. But
so you would be monitoring the heart rate with, I think, a polar heart monitor, right, and an iPad, and you would be cueing the coaches like it's time to bring it up, or it's time to keep them there, and it's time to bring them down. Is that all data, deciding what to do, is that all data you get from that initial heart rate variability score that you get?
That's more the day-to-day periodization of it. What we're looking at is like a comprehensive VO2 max type test. So for those who don't know what that is, graded exercise test starts off extremely easy. Every 3 minutes, harder and harder and harder. We go to full volitional exhaustion. So we're breaking you down, right? Measuring your oxygen consumption, carbon dioxide production. I'm learning basically when your lungs are starting to fully expand, when your respiratory rate starts to increase, when you're going anaerobic and lactate starting to accumulate. So we're learning basically what heart rate zones to optimally train you at based on what we're trying to build for that day. Then one of the most important pieces, and something the UFC put out as well, is the heart rate recovery, what we call allostatic recovery. This is where it comes down very sport specific, because I frankly wouldn't care about this in most athletes, but in MMA you get 1 minute in between rounds, right? One of the most meaningful things we can do is get your heart rate to recover faster in that 1 minute than the next guy's. Sprinter gets how much time in between, we don't really give a shit. But when you have 1 minute, and this is really one of the things, I think one of the biggest advantages, and why it's kind of disappointing to watch fights sometimes. Very few sports you know exactly how long you may have to put energy out for. 3 5-minute rounds, 5-minute rounds. People are gassing out early. It's kind of like, you didn't know? So we train. We have this kind of time limit now. And no disrespect, obviously, not everyone's at Henry Cejudo. We had a freak on our hands, so it made us look pretty good there. But no, it's one of these things, you at very least know how to pace yourself if you can't build your aerobic capacity to that level.
One thing we see change when we watch fights now, especially lately with watching fights without a crowd there, we're hearing a lot more from the corners and coaches and stuff, and it's pretty insightful. One thing that we see more now is during that 1 minute off, right, in between rounds, we see a lot of coaches doing what last year we first saw Santino DeFranco doing with his fighters, which is he's calming everything down. He's not the person in the corner who's saying, we got to get after there, we got to get him now. It's more of everything from the cadence of his voice to everything he does in that minute is designed around bringing the athlete back down to baseline. What kind of tips would you guys give fighters who don't have much of a fight camp going on for that minute off,
Breath
because
work.
everyone's got their thing.
That's one of the biggest. And then what he's saying is there's so much left on the table. And it's like you already have the rule book right there. You know you're going to have this many fives and 1 minute in between. Why on earth would you not take it? We say beat your opponent while you're in the corner getting coaching. If I can get your heart rate from 170 back down to 135 and your opponent's walking out at 150, you already got that advantage. So we work every single day that we do energy system work. We work nasal breathing strategies. We're looking. I'll put it on the screen. I'll have them. Your goal now, it's a challenge for them now again. I want to see how quick you can get your heart rate down. We have certain breath techniques I won't give out here, but just looking up simple nasal breathing, relaxation breathing, you can start to manipulate that minute. And like I'm saying, if I can walk back out 125, 130, 135, and my opponent's walking out 150, I just got the advantage in those first couple minutes. So if nothing else, just look up how to get your breath. We work on some psychology of facial expressions and stuff, just getting everything to relax. But it's simple, free, and everyone gets that minute. What you do with it's up to you.
But you have to practice it.
Have to work
I think
on it.
breathing's one of those things that sometimes we think about, like, okay, I'll breathe well in between rounds, but if you haven't practiced it for weeks and weeks,
because of stress too.
Yeah.
You can coach. It could be they're excited, they're seeing the heart rate, they're bought in, and then you're round 3 and you're tired. Forget all that.
Or you've been
control it.
punched in the stomach or kicked in the
Yeah,
leg.
Yeah.
components. But yeah, if you can ingrain that, that's why for us it's every day. And the most excited I get is when I watch a fighter practice, or if I watch him on TV, or if I'm there and I watch him and I see him doing the techniques, and I'm like, yes. And then you'll see just calmness after that.
awesome.
Off topic, but I don't know if you guys saw this research study. I thought it was pretty funny. They found that you actually recover faster with your hands on your
bend
knees than
over.
going above head.
Yes, I like a week or two ago.
Fucking football
Every
coaches,
football
man.
It's like, man, my whole
Bullshit.
life. No air down there. Like,
Well,
bullshit.
sitting there with your hands on your knees, it looks like you're giving up. It's a different posture.
Yeah.
Like a psychology thing.
Or even taking a knee. That always felt better when I was in football.
Yeah.
It's not to hold your body
Full
up.
fetal position,
Yeah.
whatever it takes.
That was my move.
Yeah.
Anything else you guys can think of that you want to hit on today? Things for fight camps that don't have as much resource that they can kind of learn from the stuff we've done?
I mean, if you're not taking care of your gut, I would say that's number one. The most basic. No athlete should be gluten, soy, dairy. No room for alcohol and things like that in camp. And at the end of the day, we're all human. We needed some moderation in there. So 6 days a week, be pretty strict. 1 day a week. Treat your gut right. This has everything to do with your sleep, your mood, your recovery. Little interventions like that. That's more taking shit out of your diet than putting things in. People think all these probiotics, prebiotics, and stuff. Your gut is supposed to be healthy. Once again, take the bad stuff out, it'll be right. Man, like I haven't had gluten in 6 months because I went 1 month clean and then I reintroduce it and I will never go back. Like just experiment with yourself a little bit. The data's great, keeps you kind of motivated there, but at least just start playing with these things a little bit. Science is real.
Great. All right, that's it for today. Big thanks to Kevin and Andre. If you're here in the Phoenix area or coming out for fight camp, you can reach Kevin Longoria at Biostrap. That's Kevin at biostrap.com. And you can reach Andre Hicks at Neuroforce1, which is very easy to find on social media. If you need MMA-focused sports medicine or physical medicine, I'm easy to find too. Dr. Matt Colby, at Dr. Matt Colby. All right, we will talk to you next time. Bye.